Welcome everyone to All Things Undone podcast. I am your host, Granny She Is, joined by my co-host, Jonathan J. Hawkins, and my special guest and friend, Coach Nilzara. So I am going to allow her to do introductions after I tell you all what we're going to be talking about tonight. If you saw the event, you saw the caption, we're answering the question or attempting to answer, is violence historically coded into men of color? And we're basing this question on some news stories that have been out and circulating. One, someone really popular, another just really extremely tragic. So thank you all for joining us. Please share this video with someone, like it. Make sure you comment down in the comments below. As always, we appreciate the camaraderie, right? The back and forth. So before we get into all that, Nilzara, I'm going to allow you to read your own bio because the words are tiny and it's one of those nights for me. If y'all don't even notice, look, I got my pajamas on right now. I'm ready. I'm ready for bed right after this. So by all means, I'm ready. I don't know if y'all noticed.
I thought it was a new fashion, I thought it was just
you thought it was a new
fashion statement.
Yeah, it's your own home, like it is what it is.
It is
right?
what it
Comfort
is.
brings goodness.
Granny, she
so,
is.
But I am Nilzara, so I am your transformational coach and domestic violence specialist and advocate. And I help women unlayer the bullshit that's holding them back from being their unique expression of God. So my business, I have actually been on here before, and I was an intimate partner violence recovery coach. So I'm in a little bit of a transition with my business and stuff like that. But my heart is to help women, again, to unlayer the bullshit that we've endured so we can become who we're genuinely meant to be. Because oftentimes we feel like we have to look out here to find ourselves, but it's really in here. We just have to unfold and unlayer all the stuff that we've been through and endured in order to reach our core.
Thank you. I love that introduction. It's amazing. And if you all have joined us before, this is my friend. I have not named him yet, but I love this mic.
Speaking to the mic, Granny.
Have an intimate relationship with this mic. But we're going to name the mic. So that's what we're talking about tonight. What brought this on? We were going to have a completely different show. We're going to talk about our non-negotiables in relationships. And yesterday, while Jonathan and I were going over all of the planning for the show, he was like, "Hey, did you see that article with Keke Palmer?" I'm like, "No, I didn't see that article with Keke Palmer. What was it about?" And he was like, "Well, her ex-boyfriend, baby's father, he attacked her in their home, and they caught it on camera where he literally, I don't know, I think she said in the police report he was grabbing for her phone, but in the process he like hit her, knocked her over the couch. You could see all her lady parts, like it was bad. And then in another clip, it looked like she was trying to get to the stairs, and he tackled her down on the stairs. You could literally see him tackling her down on the stairs. And she did file a police report. She has gotten a temporary restraining order against him. And she's really famous. And when they were dating, they looked like such a loving couple. I don't know how long they were a couple before she popped up pregnant. But here's the thing. We're going to get to our question. But my whole question to Jonathan was, I wonder what made her not say anything before now. Like, because we were looking at the video and it's like he's really comfortable with that behavior. That don't look like it was something that just, like he seemed very much so in his element. Does that make sense? Like he was really comfortable. Like they've had this kind of an exchange before. That's what it looked like. Like they've had that kind of exchange before. And so the question always becomes, why didn't she speak up? Why did she keep acting like that everything was okay? We knew something was wrong when she went to the Usher concert a few months ago, and he put this thing on Twitter how he was body shaming his own girlfriend. He was body shaming her. and what she had on was fine. It was a concert, and she was having a good time. But he felt away. Now the media clowned him terribly for that.
Plus, she was too young for Usher anyway. We all know.
I don't
Usher
think it was even anything like that. This is the thing.
Usher likes more mature women. You know, Kiki is like his little sister.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. I didn't get any type of that kind of vibe. You know? So I think that was that guy's insecurities just coming out in full bloom. And I think the more popular she got, well, she's been like a big thing. But you know, she kind of died down, right? And now she's coming back up. She's coming back into the spotlight. And I don't know, what does this guy do? What is his background? Jonathan?
Great.
I couldn't tell you what the guy did, honestly. I mean, obviously it's not enough. You know, so
okay, this is my question. Is he as famous as she is? Does he make the level of income? Does he bring in the level of income into their home that she brings into their home?
Absolutely not.
I would say probably not. Not even knowing who he is, but there's an insecurity there. So he's going to break her down because he knows I'm, just putting my thoughts out there. But in order to keep her in control, because she's beautiful, she's all of these things, and he's not, right? So he's going to keep her at a capacity where she's not going to be able, he's hoping that she's not going to be able to flourish. So I can almost guarantee that he is not anything near what she is. And just look wise, it doesn't even match. Not that looks matter, right? But there's just you're just kind of like, interesting.
I know, like, how did they even meet? Was this like a luck of the draw on his part? Like, look, y'all, look,
he's a little known actor. That's what I just surmised. He's a little known actor. So no, he hasn't had his come up.
Well, he won't have his come up anymore. That'll be done.
Yeah, that's
Darius Jackson. What movie has he been in? Do we know? And porno does not count.
He was acting. He could have been acting in there,
No,
it's still acting.
That does not count. That does not count. So I'm trying to go through the article now. I'm trying to see where she's asking for sole custody for the child. They have a son, Leotis. Yes. That's a name for you, Leotis. So she's asking for full custody. Okay, so that's what it was back. He tweeted, it's in July 2023. He tweeted, "It's the outfit though. You're a mom." So he was feeling some kind of way. He was very insecure then. And then she did a single with Usher called Boyfriend, which I thought was an amazing play on the whole concert scene.
Yeah, she's a mother.
Right. So
but he also took pictures of her and with her before she left going to the concert.
I don't get that.
So okay, so let's just break it down. I'm just gonna give my perspective. He was probably okay with it until his boys was like, "Say, man, bro, you let your girl go out looking like that to Usher concert? She ain't coming home, right?" Now he in his feelings because somebody been in his ear. His boys been in his ear.
Okay, actually, and his brother is an actor on the show Insecure. Saronis Jackson.
I have that he's a former football player, and he was in Sweethearts and Jabri Keating. I've never heard of either of those, but
that's okay. We've come to the conclusion that he's definitely not on the level that she's on when it comes to acting and
he's not an A-lister.
He's not an A-lister.
He's not an A-lister.
So an A-lister got with a D-lister, and true to form,
she gave a shot.
Insecurities came out, right? Those insecurities came out. He was shocked. About what?
No, I said she gave him a shot.
I think
she's
there
an
was.
A-lister, he's a D-lister. She gave him a shot.
Well,
He had to have been really good with his words.
Or with his wand.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, that totally plays. She was digmatized. Sure.
Just saying.
That plays a huge part in it.
Let me throw this out here. I don't know how long they dated, but I did this study in school when I was getting my master's degree. You all, infatuation can last up to 36 months. That is 3 years. You could be infatuated with a person for a very long time. You can call it a soul tie. You can call it whatever you want.
That's a spell, baby. That's a
scientifically,
spell,
during the studies, the communication studies, communication theory studies, that can last up to 36 months. So what happens when the illusion in all that dopamine and all that serotonin just kind of levels off after a while? And it's not like what it was 36 months ago.
Yeah.
Now you feel away, right?
You feel like you went from Jill Scott to Rasputia. You know, it was just like, what happened? You know?
Hold on, let me look. I got some
really
other
important to know during that time is that, you know, for lack of better wording here, is a total mind fuck, right? The longer that they can keep us in a place of like euphoria, right? Especially if she's in a place, if she is, and I don't know her background, right? I'm not one to be like, oh, I know all this, right? But if she's in a place where there's a depletion within herself, and then this guy comes in, even if he's a D-lister, right? But he can make this euphoric moment and then milk that and then mind fuck her in that time frame. That's where the real magic happens. So, you know, that's where he's going to observe her. He's probably was already observing, right? Predatory type traits. Observing from a distance, seeing what it is that she needed, and he came in and created this euphoric state for her. And then in that, he is watching strategically of the things that she needs or that she lacks, so he can provide that and bring like almost like a you need me, I pay attention to you, and it brings this tight bond. And then slowly but surely, as time goes by, because she's in this euphoric state, her love bank is full and it's to the max. Then he starts bringing in little like backhanded comments here and there. And then you can start seeing where, you know, when we're in that situation, oh, he's just having a bad day. That's all it is. And but the thing is she's in love with this euphoric version of him. And so when all this other bullshit comes, that's where the confusion comes in. Oh, he's having a bad day. I don't know what happened to my man. What's going on here? And there's been a total mindfuck. There has been a reconstruction of her thought process. And so her vision is skewed. So we might see things on the outside like, girl, what the hell is going on? But she doesn't see it that way because she had that euphoric state, and that's what she's hyper fixated on.
That like makes a drug. You make it seem like a drug. Like, dang,
it is.
You know, the first hit zone, the first hit for free, right? And you're always chasing that first high, and you know, and now that's going to cost you. So the mind fuck. Interesting. Very interesting. So I like the way you placed that. I do like the way you did that. And that's possible. That's real possible. I mean,
I think it's more than possible. Think about what attracts you to a person.
Besides hips, lips, and fingertips.
Yeah, like it's the pheromones. It's that unseen thing in the air that, you know, that chemistry, that pheromone.
Well, of course,
you know how you can walk across. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, but you know, especially if you're lacking, if there is these men and women that are like the predators, right? They're the abusers. It's almost like they can feed off. They can smell wounds. That's what they play off of. That's what they get themselves in. They wedge themselves in there. It's like they hook themselves into those wounds. And then they stay there, which you don't really feel, right? If something hits a wound, it's like a little uncomfortable, but they stay there. But then once they start pulling back, it's pulling on heartstrings, right? And it kind of creates this wave of like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And there's a cycle that happens that keeps them in. So you get that type of like, the pheromones going, but they also are very strategic on who they connect with. And it's like they smell the wounds. The deeper the wounds, the easier. It's almost like they know, got it. And then they can work their way in there. They can hook. And once they're hooked, then it gets to the point where we're apologizing for their craziness, right?
Crazy. It's a guy I follow on TikTok. I cannot think of his name right now, but if you're like the kind of woman to be triggered, like he's not the man to listen to, because he is really just laying it bare on how a particular kind of man thinks. And he talks about that, like they are really cognizant of who they are going after. They study you. They know your patterns. Like if you're going to come back, it's like a trauma bonding with you, but it's like intentionally trauma bonding with you. Right? So they know what they're doing, because they know, hey, if I push her this far, I can anticipate what she's going to do or not going to do. I need to find his page, because I tell you, he lays it bare and he does not bite his tongue. And women who come for him in the comments, he was like, look, I'm telling you how it is for this particular type of guy. I'm not saying that every man is like this, but I have been this type of guy. I am telling you how we act. He was like, these are mostly guys who are kind of technically non-committal, but they want to have control over a woman. So they know the techniques to use to have control, not quite be committed to you, because in this case, they really weren't married to each other. They're just partnering, having a baby. So technically non-committal, right? So sometimes I listen to him, and sometimes he make me mad. I got to find that guy's name, and I'm going to post it.
Not you, Granny, not you being triggered too. Come
it's
on.
Because he goes so far as to say, even for intelligent women, those kind of guys study intelligent women too. They still are looking for your points of weakness, or what they consider your points of weakness. And because you are a challenge, you're not the usual doormat.
Yes.
Keke Palmer is not the usual doormat. This girl got a resume long. She is very successful. She's been out doing this thing since she was about 7. So
it's a bigger prize.
She's a boss. So he was even talking about how men find women like that a challenge to do the very thing that Nilzara said, kind of break her down and make her feel less than. Now we can clearly see Keke is bold and she's out there, and she's still popping her shit, for lack of a better word. But apparently they're still having some things going on at the house. I would like to know more of that backstory.
Right. So how many marriages do you think end like this, Miss Rivera, where you have one person particularly who's the manipulator, and they get their hooks in before that magic 36 months before the new shine wears off? How many marriages do you think possibly end that way?
That's a great question in regards to marriages. And I would say, I'd be lying if I said, oh, this and this, right? But I do know that 1 in 3 women experience this. So if we look at marriages, I think they said it's a 55% rate of a divorce for the first marriage. And if 1 in 3 women are experiencing abuse, we can kind of compute that and see that, some of these marriages are going to equate to domestic violence. The thing is that I don't know, like, some of these marriages don't end. They're married for other reasons, whether it's religion or culture, or I have kids, I have nowhere to go. They're staying in these marriages. So I can't give you the percentage of which the marriages end this way. But I can say that there's a lot of marriages out there like this, and even long-term relationships where they're not necessarily marriages, but they've been together for over 10 years because they have property together and they have kids, but it's more comfortable to stay than it would be to leave.
Very true. And I did download an article from McLean Hospital on domestic violence. And to answer your question, Jonathan, it says the actual rate of domestic violence and sexual assault is unknown because many experiencing it are afraid to disclose or report it. So
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's the same with the marriages. There's not going to be
Exactly.
a statistical number that you can put your hands on. Because I know women in church who have endured abuse from their deacon husbands and their preacher
Hmm.
husbands for
Yes.
years, and they are still
Yeah.
there. They don't speak on it. I have witnessed it with one particular person that I was friends with, and her husband was big in the church, and
Mm.
he let his ugly side show one night in a very ugly way. And I remember getting the gun to pull a gun on him. I was going to call the police, and she begged
Mm.
me not to. Don't do that. I don't want my children's dad to go to jail. Like, please don't. Let's just keep this a private matter. Girl, he is whooping your ass 10 ways to Sunday, and you want to keep this a private matter?
I know.
You're defending him. I'm ready to blow his face off.
But you have to remember there's that mind fuck that's happened, right? She doesn't see
Right.
things the way you see things. And I think that's one of the hardest parts is being a spectator on the outside,
Mhm.
being like, what in the hell, like you have your kids involved, you have all of these things, but we just don't see it. And I say we because that's kind of my whole life until my current marriage is abuse. And we just don't see it that way, especially if we're already broken previously. Like I was chronic in all of my relationships. It was just like abuse after abuse. So when you have
Oh,
abuse
wow.
after abuse and you don't heal, your red flags, they have to be flaming and on fire to a crisp to
Right.
be like, maybe something should happen here, like we just don't see things the same way. And if they're not ready to leave and somebody calls the police or does something, guess who he's going to take it out on?
He's gonna
Her.
take it out on her.
And the family.
Mhm.
Yep. Hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So sometimes it's just easier to be like, nope, I know how to make this better at home. I can make some pancakes and then do a circus act in the bedroom and everything will be okay until the next time.
Right.
So
It's a temporary fix. And that brings us to our next story about Nesto Hernandez. Not a
Mhm.
popular person, not on the big screen, but he walked into a hospital in Dallas, Texas.
Mhm. I happen to be
Intent
across the street,
on,
believe it or not.
yeah, intent on, I don't know what the intent was, but his girlfriend or committed partner had a child for him, newborn baby.
Yep.
He goes in the hospital with a gun, pistol whips her. Two nurses apparently try to intervene and they get killed.
Yep.
uh-huh.
Absolutely right. Nestor
That is
Hernandez.
that happened a year ago, right?
Hmm. And you
And
know
I
what?
think
What makes it interesting is that 3 of my daughters were born at that hospital. I've been in that labor and delivery um, where he killed those nurses. I've been there 3 times for each one of my 3 daughters.
well, if you
One of
visit
those
again,
nurses.
it's gonna be Fort Knox in that bad boy
Oh, it's
out
probably Fort Knox, and I was actually across the
there.
street at a
Oh,
sandwich shop when the cops rolled up and started doing the perimeter. I was actually there across the street from the hospital when Nestor went on his shooting spree,
so
and
here's the
the war
thing
started.
with that, and it's tragic. It really is. He's in jail. He was found guilty, I think. But here's
Mhm.
the thing: where do we draw the line before it gets to that? Because obviously, people in their family knew that this man was violent to that extent.
But
They
wait,
knew that. The
the
staff didn't
girlfriend,
know, but the girl knew it. Yeah.
yeah, and she begged the police not to kill him.
But her family, somebody had to know that
Exactly.
it has to be
Oh,
interventions for this stuff at some
so
point. We have
she
it for
knew he was a
crackheads and
bad.
drug addicts,
She
right?
knew. She knew that he. Because I've kind of read some of the story. She knew that he was a gangster. And so she reveled in the fact that she was a gangster's girlfriend. It's kind of that dangerous life. She reveled in that.
Yeah, that's
And
not a
now,
flex. Ladies,
no,
that
it's
is
not a
not a
flex.
flex.
But when you're broken, it's a flex.
Oh.
Mm,
It's a cool thing when you're broken. My
So
man just
what is that?
right.
What is that broken mentality? What do they say? If he ain't beating me, he don't love me.
Mm-hmm. It's so sad.
Wow.
That you know, it just, that phrase in itself just shows how much is taught, right? That is something that we're not out of the womb, like, oh, those things are taught, those are experiences. And it makes me sad that women are out there saying that is their only experience of connection.
Mm.
And
between the beatings and the babies.
What was that?
Between the beatings and the babies.
Yes.
Between the beatings and the babies is the euphoria.
Yeah. And so if that is your connection, anything else is going to feel uncomfortable anyways. It's going to be boring to them. So anything that comes in that's semi-healthy, they're not even going to be able to, like, what is this? They're going to.
Those are the guys they call STEM. See, that's and it goes both ways. So we have the aggressors that we have seen. I've seen it in my childhood. As a matter of fact, how I grew up is you defend yourself at any cost. At any cost. I don't care if it's a man, woman, boy, girl. If it's a man and I'm a child and he's trying to fight me, I better go find a weapon. Like, that's what my parents taught me. Cut off whatever you can cut off. Bite, kick, scratch, claw, pull out eyeballs, whatever you got to do to protect yourself. Mm-hmm. But I've also seen some of my relatives have boyfriends that beat them up, abuse their children. I can tell you about an incident when I was about 10 years old. My mom was at work. My auntie was at work, and me, my sister and brother, and 2 of my cousins were at the house with their mom's boyfriend. And we were upstairs playing, and he was downstairs drinking or whatever it was that he did. I don't know. But I guess he decided, I don't know, got a wild hair up his ass, but he decided to come upstairs and, like, fuck with us, right? So up he comes, and he comes in the room, and he has a belt, and he literally just starts whooping on one of my cousins with this belt. And we were like, what are you doing? We're up here playing. Why are you up in here bothering us? And he was like, I'm going to beat all y'all. And I told him straight out, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. Because I was that kid. You ain't my daddy. Right? So he proceeded to try to whoop me. He really did. And I grabbed his leg and I bit. I lashed onto his leg. I would not let go. So he was hitting me, like, on my back. That is Nestor Hernandez, you guys. Mm-hmm. Right there.
And that's Methodist Central. That's the hospital. Yeah. Methodist Central in Dallas, Texas.
Right. So yeah, he comes in, he's beating on us, and I bite him so hard. Finally, he lets go. And I tell my sister and brother, I was like, come on, we leaving. It was cold. It was middle of winter time. We walked down to my other auntie's house with no shoes on. And I told my other 2 cousins to come with us, but they were terrified. Like, they would not leave their house. And I said, well, we leaving. I was 10. I was more than willing to go get a knife and gut this man at 10 years old. So, and I know we're trying to answer the question, is it historically embedded in men of color? But it was definitely embedded in me. That was like the go-to. You could express anger. That was an acceptable emotion. You can express anger, frustration. If you expressed anything that looked like weakness, crying, not sure of yourself, back then I couldn't even come home and say to my mom, so-and-so is picking on me. You know what she said? You better go out there and fight, because if you don't go out there and fight, then I'm going to beat your ass. Mm-hmm. So, like, what you going to do? So, and I'm a girl. So just imagine the guys in my family had it 10 times worse. Mm-hmm. If I couldn't express that kind of emotion as a female, think about the guys in my family, and that's just like one example.
Awesome. It's an awesome example. It's like, where does this anger come from? This need to control in the communities of people of color, particularly. Let's focus on that, because that's what we are. So why do we feel? I mean, where's this anger coming from, and the need to control another person? Where does that come from?
You answer it. You asked it. We're gonna toss it to you, black man.
Well, I was putting it around. I wanted us to chat about it, but
we're gonna chat about it
if you would like.
If I would like, okay, all right. So this is just my thoughts. My thoughts of this. That in a society where you don't have as much control over your life as when you're not a part of the dominant society.
Mm.
A person that's broken feels like they've been oppressed, but the only person that they can't oppress, their woman or their children. Right? I'm getting it. Shit rolls downhill. I'm gonna give it to you. Right? So I can't control what's happening to me, but what I can control is I'm gonna give you the shit that I'm getting. I'm gonna get this off me some kind of way.
Right.
Right. So there's that. There's one aspect.
So misplaced anger. Okay.
Misplaced anger. Inferiority complex. I like that. Especially when your woman start leveling up. Don't let her level up.
Right.
Don't let her level up. See, so there was this movie I was watching. It was there were co-workers, a man and woman co-workers, and he thought he was up for the promotion, right? And she was like, "Yeah, baby, yeah." And she got the promotion, and he did. She became his boss. As long as it was his track to become the boss, everything was all right. Okay, right? She could love him. He proposed to her, all that. She accepted, but when she became the boss, it was issues. It was problems because now she's telling me what to do. I'm inferior. I don't make the money that she makes now. Oh my God, woe is me. So you feel me? So that's where I believe some of the inferiority, some of the some of these feelings of being inept comes from, and I got to be able to control this woman because she bucking up, and she gonna think she's gonna be too big for her pants. I need to take her down a peg or two. Sound familiar?
Well, that's the thing. That's not love. That's control, as you said.
It is
wanting to control her. I think that's how you can separate. You can find out if somebody really loves you or not, too, in a relationship. Level up, change, do something different.
Well,
you will find out. But here's the thing: I was reading further in this article. When we were talking about is it historically encoded? A lot of the things in this article, it says, same article from the hospital that gave the statistics about, well, there are really no statistics for abuse. Most people who do report abuse, both men and women, 11 million women and 2 million men, said that their first sexual or physical abuse occurred when they were children. And it just kind of followed them into adulthood.
Yes.
So it starts there, and you just never, we don't, like I said this last week, as children, we don't know how to process trauma.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
We don't have the coping skills, we don't have the mechanisms, we don't have the mental capacity to process traumatic events. So we do as children do, and we figure out a way to put it in a place in our mind that we can move past it and function as a child, right? We don't understand the complexities of it. So we internalize it some way, and we have to make it okay in our little bitty brains so that we can go forward. For me, violence became quite normal. I felt like it was normal because I feel like everybody's doing the same thing in their houses, right? The same thing is going on in someone else's house that's going on in my house, until I got to school and started seeing different dynamics of relationships. People who came from houses that I could tell how people's houses smelled. Everybody in our house smoked. And then when I was little, I remember my aunties with their wild selves. They're not now. They're all saved now, baby. Look, listen. Saved, Holy Spirit. Back then they were not. I can remember them having parties in the middle of the week till 2 or 3 in the morning, and we had to be up for 7 to be on the bus for school. So I remember all this craziness, right? I thought everybody's household was like that, and I would get to school and like, okay, that person doesn't even smell like me. Like, they smell different. Like you could tell when a child came from like a healthy, loving home versus me smelling like smoke and I will beat your ass if you look at me wrong. You have all this anger as a child. You don't even know. You don't know. You don't know where to put that. You don't know where to put those big old feelings, right?
Right.
So now, and I think, and I'm not a man, but I can just imagine the men who grew up the way I grew up carrying this. Probably still don't have a way to release it. It's not a reason to beat someone else, to make someone else feel low because you feel low, but that's what it is. It's like they offload all that anger and abuse on the next person. Just, you know, we got to go to break, and then we're going to come from break. We may switch gears just a little bit. This is heavy, but I do want Nilzara to give us some tips and ways to help someone in this situation because it's hard. Like, how do you help a female out this like this? How do you get the men help that need the help? So we're going to come
the
back.
boys in particular, when stepdad or dad is really wailing on them, you know. And
hold that thought. We're coming back. Take us to break, Wayne.
Let's go.
Canvas.
Avengers! Assemble.
Canvas.
All right, we are back, and I'm up here looking at stats and stuff. But as you can see from the lineup, I Am World Media Group. We are on BWNC Radio. The app is free. Please download it and support for sure. What else do I want to say? Watch all the shows, support. We're on all streaming platforms. Yeah, my brain is starting to shut down on me. It's like, what you got about, girl?
Black with no chaser.
Black with no chasers. Yeah, but we are going to switch gears after I hear from, I want to get Nilzara's take on it. What are your final thoughts on it? Because I know you do have to hop off. What are some things that we can do in our community to help in both these situations from the female's point of view, but also to help the men who may be struggling with this?
Right.
So, okay. So this is like a loaded question because my brain kind of goes like all over the place. And so it kind of in conjunction with what we were talking about before, right? So when we come from interdependent cultures, right? Which is where the mindset is more of we versus me, right? So when we don't have the opportunity to develop as an individual, we take on what is acceptable to the masses, like in our cultures. And the majority of people with, what is the word? Like minority cultures are very much like this. It's more focused on me versus we, right? Or me, I'm so sorry. It's more focused on we versus an individual versus me. So when we talk about, you know, how can we get ourselves out of this, or what can women or men do to not get into this or to get out of this? One of the biggest things that we can do is start with that. Creating spaces with love, safety, and belonging where people can learn how to become individuals and develop themselves. That's what's going to make the difference. Now, some of these guys, like we talked about earlier, are going to look for those strong women, but being strong women doesn't always mean that we're emotionally good or emotionally intelligent, right? So creating a space where people can learn how to become an individual. They learn what they like. They learn how to say yes and no and establish healthy boundaries. Those are the things that we need to be teaching our kids in order to be able to develop themselves as individuals. So then that would break away from what the mass is doing. because unfortunately, culturally, like Hispanic wise, Puerto Rican, you know, our guys don't have a good rap. You know what I mean? Like, they're not always the greatest tonight. They might be really juicy to look at, but realistically, you know, there's a lot of them out there that are not the greatest, you know, unfortunately, and that's just the reality of things. But when you have a child and you teach them to become an individual, to have their own thoughts, they don't have to go with the masses of what everybody in the culture is teaching. So with that being said, of course, that is going to be amazing. When we, give me the question again.
Oh, I was just saying, like, some ways for us to help the community. You already answered one, and that's like
That was
starting
one.
with our children. The other one was
Absolutely.
so, and this is a hard one because again, we are balanced, but we are not men. Like, this is not an experience I've had as a man. So finding help for them, because it's from my experience, some of them grow up that way. That's the only way they know. If you try to show them something different, they're going to attack you because they're unhealed. You know, so they will not be open to anyone saying maybe one other guy in their life that they listen to. And unfortunately, that's probably the guy that taught them how to be an abuser in the first place. You know, so it's getting past that dynamic. But like you said, going forward, because there's nothing we can do about what has happened or what has transpired, going forward, helping our children understand their worth, being an individual, like you said, setting boundaries early and not being afraid. Because one thing that women do is when we like someone, we want them to like us back. And sometimes we lower our standards. We rationalize certain behaviors so that we can keep that person around. We have got to learn to let them go, period. If they're not good for your soul, I don't care how much you like them. I'm going to be transparent, talk about myself, not from just from a psychological, a mental, getting a mental tie with someone and liking them so much, you're thinking, oh, well, we have a lot in common. I had to sit back and reflect myself. How much do we really have in common? Yeah, there's a strong chemistry there sexually, but beyond that, what else do we have in common? You know, what else is there? And what am I taking from this relationship? How is it filling my cup? How is it moving me forward? How is it advancing me? And I had to be honest to myself, other than making me feel good physically temporarily, it wasn't adding to my growth as a human being. It wasn't adding to me becoming the best version of myself. And
no value add, right?
Right.
No
There was no
value add for you.
add in this relationship. Well, this connection, it wasn't even a relationship. There was no value add to be had in this connection that I was in. I'm no longer in it now because I recognize it's not doing anything for me. It's a time waster. Okay. And I don't have time for time wasters in my life right now. I am building a goal. I'm creating legacy wealth for my children. I am trying to teach my children how to be individuals, think for themselves, recognize these patterns of people who will hold them back. It may feel good temporarily, but if it's not for you, if it's not adding value to your life, cut that shit off.
I love how you
And I
put
tell
that.
my girls that quickly. I don't care how good he look, how much he like you. What is he really in the grand scheme of things? Let's break this down. What is he
I love that.
bringing to you? How is he teaching you?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that's really important specifically for us, for women, because it's different for men, right? When we have sexual encounters, different hormones are released, right? So for men, it's testosterone, unless there's actual intimate feelings there, then they can experience oxytocin. But just for women, hugs, like holding hands, you know, doing all those things, and then you get it in, and he's big and he's great and he's all of these things, you know, then we're really super digmatized, but we release oxytocin, and oxytocin is the bonding chemical. It's the same chemical that a woman releases when she is breastfeeding her kid.
Right.
It brings that connection. So even though they are not investing in the relationship like they should be, or we're not getting any benefit out of this, because there's been that release, there's another layer of kind of like a woo, you know, behind the scenes that's going to make it harder for us to go because we're infatuated with this. So there's that piece. And then there's also women who associate love with sex.
Mm-hmm.
So they love quickly because they don't really know what that is, right? Like true love to the core. And then they are so disconnected with themselves that the only means of connection is by giving themselves away.
Right.
So they jump into those things very quickly. And, you know, they're really good at doing circus acts and flipping it and doing it, right? But they can't tell you how they're feeling. They can't express to you what they need and those types of things. So there's so many dynamics to all of this.
I've been that girl before too. I've been that one.
Yes. With the circus tricks.
Tricks.
Yes.
Okay.
When you get
we're not going on the circuit trick. We're not going.
When you're learning who you are as an individual, because I had to reparent, and I'm not the only person, and this is males and females. We learn to reparent ourselves in certain ways. We learn, because being in a marriage for so long as I was, of course, I had all kinds of circus tricks. Now, before then, when we dated, before I got married, we definitely wasn't having sex right out the gate. You know, it took like a year and a half before we even broached that subject. I was so young, you know. So, and in the moment we started having sex, I get pregnant. You see how that works?
Fertile Myrtle.
Well, I'll fertile Myrtle. Like I was just young and dumb and stupid, you know. So, you know, just learning all these things, and then up until recently, like a few years ago, when my marriage first ended and I first got a divorce, I had a couple relationships where I just jumped straight up in the bed with a guy. But then I started thinking, wait, this is really not, you know, other than the sex being amazing, what else is there?
Right.
What else is there? And then I started thinking, I had this one connection that was so strong, though, it got me really thinking about my energy and how I need to be really careful with my energy to make sure I'm just not connecting with any spirit out here. Because for some reason, at some point, the spiritual aspect of this whole thing kicked in, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, you know. So now I'm at a point where no, I'm going to keep this sacred energy sacred, but it took having a particular kind of experience for me to get to this point, you know what I mean? So
it's learning. It's learning, and I love that. It's something that I know that I'm going to teach my son and then my grandsons as well, that there's a difference, you know. There's a difference that, you know, you like her, she smells good, she has lips, fingertips and hips and all that. It's good. But lips, the lips, fingertips and hips. Yeah, whatever. So, but
you like those, huh? We know.
Yeah. I got that. Yeah. So y'all, I communicated that, right? But question, son, are y'all doing something, or is she just something to do right now? Are you building something, or are you wasting time?
Right.
And so, and being able to communicate, that's something I think that may, I mean, we need to learn how to communicate with each other. That within itself, people who feel like they can't communicate effectively want to communicate with their fist because they can't communicate effectively in other ways.
Right.
So that's something else as well. So being a well-rounded person, being able to be, empathetic with your partner, with other people, because you can't be empathetic if you're going upside this woman's head. You can't be empathetic. To your children if you're beating on their mother. And
that's what's lacking in a lot of communities of color. Teaching, we need to teach ourselves. Our parents didn't know, our grandparents didn't know emotional intelligence, having self-control. And I was amazed by the Black families that I saw that were like that, who had that. I can name one couple. I'm not going to say their names. I don't have permission to. But one of my classmates, his mom and dad had him late in life, very late in life. Like I think they were in their 40s when they had him. And they had done their careers, his mom and dad. They were wealthy, well off by the time he came along. And he was he was what we would call like a nerd, Poindexter, a simp, right? He was super smart. He was well dressed. He knew stuff we didn't know. Like, I'm like, where the fuck did you come from, dude? Like, But
He's a
it was
unicorn, right?
he was a
Unicorn. He's
unicorn.
a
It was
unicorn,
amazing.
right?
His parents were so intelligent. I remember we tried to go to his house one day or something, and he was like, "No, you can't come in." I was like, "What are you trying to say? We dirty?" He was like, "No, I didn't tell my mom I was having company. You know, it's etiquette here. It's a certain way you need to be dressed. It's a certain way you need to look." And I was like, "Oh, you think you white, huh?"
Yes, that's huge. Yes. Oh my gosh. When you try
Break
to
it down.
better yourself, all of a sudden you're trying to be white. And it's like, no, I'm
Right.
not trying to be white. I'm just trying to not live in the bullshit anymore.
That part.
I'm
Right.
just trying to better myself. I'm not trying to be white. I don't want to be white. I'm proud that I'm Puerto Rican, but you
Right.
know, yeah, it's immediately, even the way I sound, because it's not,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know, with an accent, or it's not like my New York cousins or whatever. It's very like,
Right.
you're trying to be white, and I'm like, yo, I was raised in a tiny country town. Like, what do you expect from me?
Right.
But I'm still brown. Like, I'm
Yep.
still Hispanic. Like, I was
Yep.
born in Puerto Rico. But that's a big thing. Like,
Mhm.
being emotionally intelligent and
Mhm.
being educated and those types of things are labeled as being white. And I think it's total shit. And we
It
need to
is.
stop being, because that's like, no one wants to talk about it, but racist in itself. We just need to accept that being educated is for everybody. It's not just
Absolutely.
one, and we should never put anybody else down for making them,
Mhm.
because they want to be better. We should be encouraging that. We should see that as something like, yes, that's what I want. They're doing something different. That means I can do something different.
Very
If
good.
they can do it, then that means I can do it. And I think that's what we need. I do have to go here in a minute because my little one is
Okay.
being really rambunctious upstairs. But
Okay, cool thing.
end with anything is like, we need to stop putting labels when it comes to things like that. And we need to
Right.
start encouraging healthiness across the board. And healthiness
Very
across the board, that looks different for everybody, but we should never put anybody down for wanting to better themselves.
And I'm glad you said that,
Very,
because I think there
very
needs
true.
to be some exposure there for them to see
I have
what
to go. My
normality
baby's
looks
going
like.
crazy.
All right,
Yes.
Nilzara, thank you for
Nilzara,
joining me.
thank you
Oh,
so
and look,
much.
I'm going to get with you before you get out of Louisiana. We're having lunch or dinner.
Yes,
for
we
sure.
will.
All
We
right.
will. Okay,
Mwah.
thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I want to piggyback on what she says. It needs
Okay.
what normalcy looks like, right?
Mhm.
If I've been living in dysfunction, I don't know what normalcy looks like.
Right.
Exposure to that. So in our community, since the topic is domestic violence encoded in our community. In
Mhm.
order for us to see something normal, those in our community who don't see it, they need to be exposed to it. And how do we expose people to better relationships? How do we expose people to help that they need? How do we expose people to there's a better way to communicate outside of your fist? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree, but I think that we're going to have to start from now. And there are programs out there for people who are going through this, and men who are going through this. It's so complicated. Like, we didn't really have a lot of comments tonight because this is such a heavy subject, and people really
Mhm.
don't want to touch it or touch
Mhm.
on it. Because I know, like, women who are probably going through it, no one wants to touch that, and men who either are triggered by it for whatever reason, who don't want to touch it. So this is like a really, really, really heavy subject. I agree with what
Mhm.
she's saying. We have to get out of the mentality of making positive things white in the Black community.
Mhm. Right.
Okay.
Therapy.
Therapy.
Oh my
Therapy.
gosh. I
Using
don't need
correct
therapy.
English.
I got Jesus. I
You
don't
got
need
Jesus. You
therapy.
don't need therapy, right? You got long as you got King Jesus, you don't need nobody else, right?
Mm.
So
See.
that's kind of where we are. That and speaking properly.
Oh yes.
That
Oh, I
we
got
have
that
to
all
really
my
change
life.
the dynamic on that. I mean, if you're trying to build a business, I learned years and years ago when I first moved to Louisiana, I used to say I was so country. I had my bank president pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, I need you to start articulating your words when you're speaking with the customers." And I'm like, "What do you mean articulate my words?" He was like, "Make sure you're pronouncing them clear. I need for you to enunciate." And like he's saying these words, and I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck articulate and enunciate means. Like, you know, what are you talking about, sir? So
Speak English. Speak
speak
English.
English, right? So I started to listen to what he was saying. That was one of the first lessons I ever learned. I was very very humble, and and on my lunch breaks he started coming to talk to me about the words, what they meant, you know, what articulation meant. Like he would come and talk to me about investments, and you should think about this, and you should think about that, and how have you considered, you know, X, Y, and Z. He used to be impressed with the fact that when I ate, like I only had one hand on the table and one hand off. That's because my grandmama Brice would kill us. So we knew etiquette. We just didn't speak correct English. But so far as etiquette and how to eat and how your place setting was, like I knew that kind of stuff. So he was impressed by that. And he was like, "Well, it's in you." He's like, "You just got to work on it." So our show is not going to run in an hour and 30 minutes tonight. I'm actually about to go ahead and end it right here. And we will post some links and stuff for you guys for sure. Do you have any closing comments or closing remarks, Jonathan, before we get out of here tonight?
I just want to make sure. I just want to say that this is a very heavy subject, but it was worth tackling that. And I want to say that if you are experiencing any domestic violence, that there is help. And I think Cheryl's going to kind of put some, either tell you about some resources or share some with you at the end.
Oh yeah, we do. We have some resources pinned in the Facebook group chat, but I'm also going to put them in a link below, along with Nilzara's information for anyone who needs transformational coaching. She is a transformational coach. She does more with women and helping women and men get over domestic violence, traumatic past, PTSD, things of that nature. So don't forget to download the BWNC radio app. Tomorrow, already done. This show will be featured at 10 a.m. on BWNC Radio, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then it will also post to all other platforms the following Wednesday. Please like, share. We're about to go out. You can still come in if you watch this after, but y'all have a beautiful, beautiful night. Take us out, Wayne.